Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the after show. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and we are doing a hangout tonight. Everyone's welcome. Come on in and tell us your stories of being in lockdown. Over half the planet at this point, half of the entire species has been or is currently under some form of lockdown. It's pretty staggering when you think about it. In some ways, I'm optimistic because it shows what we can do when we put our minds to it and when we work together, which we really don't like doing. We're not a fan of, frankly, either of those two things, and we're not. I think doing as great a job as we need to be. That seems to be the general consensus, and I am concerned about where we're headed. But I may mention one or two specific concerns I have, but that's not really what this isn't a news update. This is for people to talk about what they've been seeing, what they've been going through. I sort of, I think, dominated most of uh, uh, last time with my story. Uh, is what it is. I'm still not fully recovered. I'm up to what I sort of call 95%. I actually am still getting fevers on occasion. Started one, not that it's only 100. It's an even 100, but that's still shouldn't be at that either. But for the most part, I can walk around the block reasonably okay, and be reasonably active. So things are doing much better. We are starting to learn that this is even more serious than people thought. A weird pattern was detected, which was there was an increase in the number of uh, strokes happening in this country. It wasn't a huge increase, but it was enough over time that it was statistically relevant, and somebody picked up on it. And somebody picked up on it when a COVID patient, a very young COVID patient who was supposed to be fine, I think she was 6 years old, if I recall, stroked and died. And I said, well, it's unusual for a child to get a stroke. What's going on? And what they've realized is there is a very strong correlation. In fact, enough now that I think they've declared really it is COVID appears to cause some blocking issues, and it is causing um, uh, strokes in some patients. It may also be causing embolisms, so nobody's entirely sure. That's obviously staggeringly serious, and it is affecting children. That hasn't been calculated into any death rate calculation that I've seen so far. And the reason is because nobody really knew that, and we have people dying of something that they think isn't COVID, and it turns out to be COVID. So, between that and a few other things, and we've talked about this before, it is notoriously difficult to know what the numbers are. Um, um, it's very difficult too. We have decided we're going to try to figure out. The general consensus is that we're coming out of lockdown too early. We just are. I shouldn't say the general consensus. I think that's universally the consensus amongst absolutely every scientist who's talked about this and has looked at it. And we're coming out too early. So we're going to get a second wave. The general thinking is the second wave is going to be worse than the first one. We now do ostensibly Revacor, I forget how to pronounce that. I'll find that in a second. Actually appears to have some rather significant efficacy. Chloroquine is actually the reverse. It's actually dangerous, but Revacor may be working. And if it's working, it may change the math, but a lot of people are trying to look at it. And we are trying to take a look at it ourselves to say, do we have any thoughts as to where things may be and where they're going? Because a lot of people are having questions, and we'd like to do our best to sort through it. So over the next couple of days, we're going to be looking quite seriously with as many experts who are willing to talk to us. And because it's in time, that's not a lot of experts. But we're going to try to see what most modern data can tell us. And we're not going to have any answers. We're going to have some guesses. And would like to look at that. So, and hello, Dr. Zayas. Hello, everybody. So I had to throw a shout out to him, shout out to us. So what we do know is that the CDC, and I think it was the World Health Organization, initially at least the CDC has said that they were projecting 200,000 U.S. deaths. The Trump administration was going with the lowest model, one of the ones that is pretty much administration, and they've been saying 60,000 deaths. They have now revised that model and are going up to a minimum of 134,000 deaths. Now, this is the remdesivir. That's right, it was remdesivir. Thank you, Iron Chartier. Remdesivir. I'm going to have to learn this because I have a feeling I'm going to be saying that a lot. The numbers are being revised, but they're being revised by the White House, which has been having considerable difficulty with math recently. They've always had a difficulty with math, but this administration more than most, and for quite some time. So they've revised it now up to 134,000 deaths, which is still quite a lot. And I don't know. Some people think that's a lot. Some people think it isn't. People like to do the, oh, well, you're likely to die on the freeway, yada, yada, yada. More people die on our freeways. It shocks people when you take a look at the number. It's between 42 and 52,000 a year. That's a lot of people. This is roughly 3 times that amount dying in a few months, and that's still one of the rosiest projections I've ever seen. So we're going to look at it. We're just, I think personally, all of us here are somewhat concerned about this, and there have been some crazy things just going on. I was at the post office, and a woman came in without a mask. Now, in Massachusetts, the governor has declared that you cannot be in a public place, and certainly not in a government, federal or state government building, without a mask. Period. End of discussion. This woman had no mask. So she she's in line, and everybody's kind of freaked out. And just as a reminder to everybody, you're not wearing the masks to protect yourself. They actually do offer you a little protection because they discourage you from like touching your certain parts of your face. They offer you a little protection. It's almost negligible, but they do offer you some. But that's not why you wear the mask. You wear the mask so that if you get other people infected. Now, 316 of a pork plant, 300 members of a meat packing plant have all tested positive for COVID, and all of them were asymptomatic. That means none had any symptoms. This happened because someone there had it, wasn't wearing a mask, poof, they've all got it. So you can have it, have no idea, you're contagious. So I went to the grocery store, had to get some stuff. Roughly 10% of the people there weren't wearing masks and really didn't care less. And these weren't people who can't afford it or can't, they're just not wearing masks. So we're at the post office, and they say you have to be wearing a mask, you have to leave. And she starts to get really upset. She's just like, well, I'm just here for stamps. Everybody's just here for stamps or this. Everyone's going to be here quick. You need to either leave. Well, you need to leave, and you can come back when you have a mask on. And she flipped out and started to berate everybody there. And after a very hostile engagement, did leave, and shouted on the way out, "I'm going to report everybody here." And poof goes. She can go report whoever she wants. This is, but and I know the news is, but what does it take to realize that the governor has ordered this? You can't go into any. Okay. And there are reports of hostilities over who's wearing a mask and who isn't, and we can expect that. We're seeing some hostilities also with the protesters who are armed in many cases and are encouraging people to violate the quarantine and are encouraging sick people to show up. So to these protests. Now we're seeing spikes in states like Florida. Well, the spike usually occurs 2 weeks. When you change course, it takes 2 weeks before we notice anything from that. So if we lock down right now, we're still going to see any COVID cases until about 2 weeks from now. And if we suddenly open up and everybody starts, partying with everybody, 2 weeks from now, you're going to see a massive spike. So Florida, actually about a week ago, started getting a spike. Why? 2 weeks before that, they opened the beaches. So there is now this increase that's going to be happening for 2 weeks, no matter what we do. No matter what we do. It's a done deal. You can't do it. The second wave has already started. Actually, we just haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it, but it's started. Michigan started going up. Why Michigan? ago, that's when the protests started in Michigan. The really best, let's bring lots of people and invite the sick people along to hang out with everybody else. 2 weeks, their numbers are going up. Wisconsin, where? And it was absolutely the voting because they've done contact tracing and figured out how many of the people who did the voting that the Wisconsin courts refused to stop. They showed up, they were practicing social distancing measures, and they still a bunch of people. So, all right, now I appear to be having some audio difficulties, and let me see now. What I want to try to identify is it just low, or am I cutting in and out, and how much of this have we missed, meaning I have to go do it again. So let me check the audio on my system here. It appears to be cutting in and out, and I have a suspicion I know what's doing that. Now I'm hoping this isn't going to disconnect me, but I am going to try something here. All right, and that's not going to work. So let me hold on. Did have someone trying to join. I apologize. Has the audio been bad all the way from the since the beginning? Someone said start from the beginning. I really don't want to do that. But I do think I know. I hope I will probably have some idea of what the problem is here. So I need a minute. All right, I am going to try one more time here to fix the audio. Now I'm having difficulties. All right, I assume I'm still having to, okay. I'm going to try refreshing, see if that fixes it. Seem to have the means to fix it if it's the other problem. All right, well, somebody's saying it's all right now. I'm hoping. So I don't know. I was going to say what didn't you guys hear, but I don't. I will say my internet service provider is keeping with the concept of net neutrality, or in keeping with the concept of violating net neutrality. What they have done is they throttle a number of the upstreams. They don't like you streaming anything up wherever you're streaming it to. They don't like people doing that kind of thing. You can buy a business license if you want to do that, and then if you do that, they will allow you to stream up, but otherwise they throttle you, make it up. I do have a VPN that lets me get around this, but the VPN is not launching and won't run in the background and is just dead right now. So I've been having computer problems all day. I apologize. So I'm going to keep talking as if everybody's listening. And if the numbers start to go down, I'll realize nobody can hear me. So as I was saying, and we are on a bit of a lag, so if you guys notify me in the live chat, it may be a little behind when I catch it, but I will do my best. But thank you guys for letting me know. So what we are somebody did try to get in, so please try again. Sorry, we were dealing with the audio issues. Now, okay, still a little choppy. I can't this at present. I probably can't fix it without rebooting the whole system. So if it gets really bad, I may do the reboot. But until that time, I think because this is the VPN, so I can't get around the throttle ban. So I will try a bit more. If it gets bad, I have a couple of may have to pause the show for a minute while I restart the system. We will see. The three states that have had the most increase at this point in COVID cases are the three ones that violated lockdown early, started passing through lockdown early. This is Florida by reopening the beaches, Michigan by having the protests, and Wisconsin by doing the early voting. Wisconsin hopefully is going to get sort of back under control. We're going to see. The numbers are going up. The was revising their numbers to 134,000 U.S. deaths, which is significantly higher than the numbers they first went with, which universally was accepted as extraordinarily optimistic beyond any reason. The World Health Organization and/or it was the CDC, I've forgotten which, said it was going to be closer to 200,000. And in any case, this ludicrous notion that, hey, it's just like, driving your car. No, between 42 and 52,000 people die a year on our freeways. This is now the rosiest that we've got says that this is about 3 times that in a couple of months. So it's difficult. I told the story of being in the post office. This woman was violating a grocery store. This is Massachusetts. We're a liberal state. We're a state that believes in education. We're a state that really believes in, we're a liberal state. We're actually reasonably pro-government. Not this government as much, but we tend to work together. And our governor has said everyone wear a mask. 10% of the people I saw when I went to the grocery store weren't wearing masks. We've seen an uptick of violence and threats of violence, especially from people who say that they want to be out right now. And then this gets into something, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. We're going to have Sygart on tomorrow to talk about conspiracy theories. There have been a few. The 5G theory. This was started by a lab. Here's something that's very important, and we cannot be clear enough about this. At present, there is, to the best of my knowledge, zero, and I mean none, credible evidence that this was started in a lab and released deliberately. That this was invented by anyone and released deliberately. There is no evidence for any of that. Having said that, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who is he's in the CIA, he should know better, has come out and said that the evidence is very strong, that it was, I believe he had said it was made in a Chinese lab, if I remember correctly, or at a minimum it was released from a Chinese lab. Now, there is a lab in Wuhan, I think he was referring to that lab. That lab does in fact have a great deal of different versions of the corona strain. They've been studying it, and they have been passing all of that data and copies of the strain so that we can work on it to the United States. That was until we killed funding for that lab and shut down all of that lab's work. They're on the cutting edge of stopping this thing, and we're not paying anymore, and they shut it down. Now, if there was any evidence for what he said the evidence is considerable. Every American ally has now come out and said it is highly unlikely that COVID-19 was started in a lab. Further, when you take a look at what it takes for something like this to develop on its own, the last I saw, and I'm doing this from memory, I'm sorry, but as I recall, the evidence was that this thing has been developing naturally for 25 years. This was not done in a lab. There is no evidence that it was. And coming out and saying not only that there is some evidence, but that it's overwhelming. This is the Secretary of State for the United States. Now, this is no big deal in one sense, which is pretty much, that reflects most of the fucking bullshit coming out of this administration. Excuse me, but this is really starting to tick me off. We make stuff up. The U.S. government is starting to make stuff up. We have become really, genuinely not that much different from Russia, whose president lies to them about everything all the time. How many? Trump has told more lies in a week than most previous administrations in the entire administration. Don't believe me? Factcheck.org, that one. I mean, they've been counting. I think when he broke 10,000 lies, they're like, hey, let's have a party. So, but some of this, unfortunately, has some pretty serious consequences. And when he's making up stuff about, I was going to make a joke about how all of us need to remember to freebase our Lysol in the morning, but somebody's going to hear that. And actually, I mean, at this point, we're going to get sued. And somebody, if listen, I'm going to tell that joke. If you think it's funny, I thought of that joke. If you want to sue us, that was our producer's plan. Just saying. So, and I keeping in mind that he can actually just like kill the stream at any moment or turn me green. So I'll try to. Uh, so, um, the reason there's a lot of reasons you should try to be honest if you are running a nation. One of them is it's actually a lot. Oh Jesus, son of a. We have the nicest, greatest producer in the world. I had him over to a party once, and he was the life of the party. Thank you. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have to be a little more careful in the future. Um, we'll do another show, and I'll tell you all the truth about the guy. So speaking of, this reminds me too. So I got my haircut done at home. It's a decent haircut. My wife's haircut is terrible. So this is where it gets into. You go into a town. Town has two barbers. One has horrible hair. One has good hair. Which haircut do you go to? The one with the bad haircut or the one with the good haircut? The answer is you go to the one with the bad haircut because yeah, you go to the one with the bad haircut. Jesus, I'm tired. Excuse me. Barber to town, two barbers, one with a bad haircut, one with a good haircut. If you want to get your haircut, you go to the barber with the bad haircut because he's the one who did the other guy's hair. So, in our family, I have the best haircut of anyone in the family. Don't let me cut your hair. So, sorry, where was I? I allowed myself to get distracted. The reason you want to try to tell the truth in government is there's a few legit reasons for it, and there's a lot of benefits to lying. Don't get me wrong. It helps you control the narrative. It helps you get things done in certain directions. There's usually sideways consequences with it, so you want to be a little careful with it. But there are a lot of benefits. But it's a shortcut. Telling the truth overall tends to be better in the long run. The reason is when people believe you, then you can get even more done. Because if you lie long enough, people don't believe you anymore, and you lose all credibility, and you lose a lot of power and strength with that, unless you're a strong man like Putin, which we all know Trump would like to be. The good news is he doesn't have the fucking balls to do it. He does, and he'd be half willing to, but he can't. And he's an idiot, and he doesn't have the kind of respect, and nobody fears him. So he's a joke. Nonetheless, and someday I'll tell you my real opinions on the guy. Nonetheless, when people believe what you're saying, they act on it. And when it comes to something critical like this, as far as I'm concerned, he's criminally negligent in what's going to be the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of more Americans over if he had actually just been honest in doing his homework. And I understand it's kind of hard to be president of the United States. I'm aware it's a difficult job, but then don't run for the job. We've had people who know what they're doing, who can do it, who would be willing to do it. And you know what? I'm not a fan of Hillary. I really dislike Hillary. She's competent, and she's one of the most vetted candidates in human history, and they couldn't come up with anything. I'm sorry, they couldn't come up with anything. And people watch Fox News say, oh, they came up with loads. Yeah, then why didn't Congress go after her? If she lied to Congress, which is what they said, why didn't they? I mean, that's a felony. It's a felony to lie to Congress. Why didn't they hook her on it? The reason is because they all like to say she did. And they like to go, a senator can go on air and say, oh, she was lying to us and we know it all he wants to and play to his base. But he's not filing charges. He's not filing charges. He's playing to his base and he's trying to get reelected. So we want to talk about who could have actually handled this. It's Hillary. I'm sorry. And I think the people who voted for Trump would rather have had someone who pisses off liberals. That was his number one qualification. He pisses off the liberals. That was his only. Nobody thought he was the common man. He installed a golden toilet in his bathroom. That's the common man. I mean, what gets me is that Republicans could actually, I mean, and genuine common man Republicans could say that with a straight face. Oh, I feel like he's the common man. Give me a break. He pissed off the liberals. That's the only reason he's in. Only reason. That was his qualification. So you pick someone, that's their qualification, and now people are dying for it. And quite frankly, I remember when people were voting for him, he was running, I said, look, this is a serious job. It's going to kill people anyway. You get somebody incompetent there, it's going to kill people because the president does make life and death calls basically every day. That's the job. That's why they have the gray hair at the end. It sucks, but you signed up for it, so go do it. You put in the wrong person, you're going to have more people die. But if there's a catastrophe of any kind, and people are like, nope, nope, won't be a big deal. And here we are. So Donnie Boy, who I will say this, and we'll get demonetized preemptively, like 30 seconds in advance. I stopped calling him the name that we voted for on my website. Um, we did. So my personal website, we did. Because I take personal offense to him, and I've taken offense to him for quite some time. And so I came up with 3 different names, and we had a vote on Nicholas Lamar. What name do you want to give him? Let me I'll give you the initials of the name and see if anyone can guess what the name is. Because it has honorific, because, hey, president, he gets it's PGIC. What was that? Nicholas Lamar Stewart. In fact, we don't refer to him under as anything else but his honorific title, PGIC. So someone can tell me what they think that is. It's an honorific because I believe you have to honor the guy. In Russia, things are starting to get crazy. They had this down. Russia had this beat. Somehow it got into parliament, a couple members of parliament. Now it's everywhere. They're starting to see their numbers go up. We don't know how much or how bad. It's Russia. It's very hard to tell. What we do know is that 3 Russian doctors have fallen out of windows. Nobody knows how or why. The one theory appears to be that they had gotten infected and they refused to work. And they were saying that they're not going to keep working while they're infected, and they're not going to infect other people. And there was no, the G does not stand for golf. It absolutely does not stand for golf. So it is what it is. Russia's going to now, it looks like, start to see some numbers. We had a discussion with Dr. Seigart on some of the numbers, and I would like to get his opinion on these numbers. And he said he's going to be willing to work with us, which is a sacrifice because we're asking some time from people who are experts on this. I had referenced the closed cases, and he had pointed out why you can't use the closed cases. If you go just by closed cases. Now, what a closed case is this. It's a case that has had a resolution of some kind. Either they got better or they died, but there's a resolution. In general, the the closed case, in general, we used open cases. So the CDC says, okay, how many cases are there? How many people have recovered? There you go. The problem is a number of those people in the current cases aren't going to recover. So that number is going to be inaccurate. If you go by the closed cases, it's the number of people who have either gotten better or died. But there's a whole bunch of other problems with that. So one problem with the closed cases is that right now what they're saying is that they think about 50% of the people who get COVID don't even know they've ever had it. So if they don't know they've had it, it's going to throw if it's half the people don't know they've had it, the closed case numbers are going to be double what the actual mortality rate is. So the closed case numbers don't work very well either. The current closed case numbers are about 18%, which is staggering. That's 18% mortality rate. That's staggering. If only half the people who get it show symptoms, then that number is at least double what it should be. So that comes down to 9%. CDC is saying the mortality rate in their best view is around 3%. A lot of it, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. So, like I said, we're going to sort of try to take a look at the G stands for, well, okay. IC stands for in chief. So he is 2 words in chief. We'll see if anybody comes up with it. So, and keep in mind, I started with this title, actually really batting around this title as to what he would be during the primaries, shortly after he took a trip on a bus. So, anyways, and I think people haven't forgotten. I mean, people need to remember just how horrible a human being. He's a terrible human being. Period. End of discussion. So, Chris Christie is trying to open up. He wants all states to reopen, pushing not just towards New Jersey, but um, he's uh, so let's see. The I apologize. I got distracted. Got a couple things coming in here. Um, it isn't grifter. It isn't grifter. It isn't grifter. Um, it's not grifter. The bus thing will tip somebody off. Somebody will figure it out after the bus thing. Oh, I detest the guy. If you guys want to come in and we can just talk about the bingo. We have a winner. Yes, we have a winner. Keep in mind there's a lag here, but yeah, we uh, damn it, Jenna has a, and I was really calling him that for a very long time. I'd like to try to stay monetized, so I probably won't say it, but I miss calling him that because people need to be reminded of the fact that this is who this guy is. Anyways, if you guys want to call in, we've got the link down at the bottom. I know I'm still having some audio issues. I've tried to speak a little louder, hoping that maybe it's the noise gate. I don't think it's the noise gate. I think it's my um, uh, I think it's my ISP, and I often take precautions against what's happening now, but computer issues wasn't able to. So I do apologize. But if you guys want to come on in and we can talk about, what have you guys seen? What have you experienced? What are your thoughts on this? What do you think is going to happen with the reopening? Um, we're going forward. It looks like there are some states that don't want to, but at this point, uh, a lot of states are thinking if we don't, all that happens is we damage our economy further. We're going to have the same number of losses, really, because states in this country are reasonably ubiquitous. And it is interesting. And this is one of the nice things you get when you work on YouTube and social media. You get to meet people from a lot of other countries and how much they don't know about the US that you think would be common sense. I've gotten into arguments before where somebody was quoting California law to me. I was just like, yeah, that doesn't apply. There's other case here. And they're like, yeah, but it's the law. No, in California. Like, yeah, but this is another. No, it's a different state, dude. The laws are different. Wait, how can you live with that many? Well, there's a lot of commonalities, but they're not the same. Like, yeah, but then a lawyer would have to be certified to work in each different state. I was like, welcome to the US. And then the other thing is like, wait, you can go from one state to another without papers? Yeah, you no papers, nobody checks. Like, well, yeah, but certainly they keep track of you. Nope, you just go. And that's an issue if you're trying to keep down a global pandemic. At least in my view, I'm not a doctor. I guess I could, but so we're having some shortages. Flour is the latest thing to have a shortage. We're still, just like toilet paper, we are producing enough. We're producing enough for everybody to have as much as they really want. But there's been a run on flour, so all of a sudden, no flour. That will get corrected. I am concerned. I will be honest. Um, I'm mildly concerned about this second wave because there were signs that our infrastructure was having difficulty under the first wave. We There were signs of it. We were having some problems towards the end of it with food going quite where it was supposed to go. We were having some issues, nothing serious, but we were having some issues. So if we have a second wave that's bigger, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little concerned. So that's why we're going to, um, yeah, the P is not for president. That is correct. Well, he may be a president grabber in chief. He grabs a lot of people. I don't know what he's done with W. Bush in the, anything's possible. I've asked around. We have not been able to get sources that can confirm or deny what he's been doing with, when he gets. He and Barack were in the Oval Office for a little time. Barack was awfully quiet when they came out. Who knows? Um, so what's going to happen if there's no meat? There are other sources of iron. The real problem is protein and iron. You can get them from beans. You can get it from any number of other things. Meat, I'm mildly concerned about because what happened with the packing plant. That's a legit. So that's an entire. And there are meat workers who are now saying they are refusing to continue to work. And I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's the whole union or what they're saying, but there is something with that. Like I said, this is a hangout. Why are we suddenly dealing with the with the? I'm not prepared to do a full news show on the hangout, but it looks like some meat workers are planning to um, go on strike. Now, here's what happens, which is because of the emergency act that that Trump enacted, he could actually he could force them to work. If he really wants to, he could draft them and force them to work. Just put them in the military. I mean, he's got options. They're all bad options, but he's got options. Uh, I think. I mean, the answer is I think if things don't get tremendously worse than they did on the first batch, we'll be okay. My concern is, we've got some positive things. Remdesivir is looking good. I don't know how much we've got of it, but it looks like it helps. If it could reduce the burden on our medical system, I think that's a big plus. The other thing we don't know is, can you catch this again? There is very little indication right now that you can get it again if you've had it. I think there's been one confirmed case, but in general, I think a lot of people sort of assume that you can't. The CDC will not say that you can't. That does typically tend to be how this works. That's how antibodies work. However, this thing does mutate. And last I recall, there's something like 30 different possible mutations out there. Whether or not, if you have had one, you're resistant to the others, I don't know. But it does mutate, and how bad the mutations are, we just don't know. And as somebody who makes knowing things sort of the key part of of his life strategy, and being educated a key part of moving forward, it's very difficult for me to sit here and say we don't know. I don't like that answer. I'm very uncomfortable with that answer. That's why I do a news show where we sit there and talk about trying to figure this stuff out. Yes, Soylent Green is hopefully not on the menu. Tastes like chicken, I've heard, but to be fair, I've spoken with 3 people who actually have eaten other people, and they all concur it's chicken. So, welcome to a brave new world. Of course, that wasn't it. It wasn't brave new world, but nonetheless. We're going to be around for another about 10 or 15 minutes. So if anybody wants to hop in and just say hi, we got the link. It's at the top of the, just double click in there and you can come on into the Google Meet, join the Hangout, and make fun of my haircut. Talk about how you guys have been coping. I think one of the things I have heard, we're homeschooling our children. It's difficult because both my wife and I are working full, just, the full complete um, schedules. We're both up to our ears on. We're both actually pulling roughly 80 hours a day, 80-hour weeks, and now we have to sit and try to make sure that our children are getting an education. The school system was not really prepared for this, and I do get that. But I've taught in high school, and there are ways to do this, and there are ways to do this better than it's really been done. I'm not pleased with how I think a number of problems that the school systems have had in keeping up with it. And as my understanding is, Alliance right now are not pleased with the system. I do think that the I do think, parents in many cases aren't prepared to start teaching their kids. So there's going to be pushback. There's going to be parents who are upset with it and having difficulty with it. But I think there's a disordinate amount. A lot of teachers weren't ready to start working remotely. I get that. I don't think they're getting the proper support they need from their districts. If they were, I think that ours, we have, 5 different teachers who have 7 different ways of doing the same thing, and then they change ways midway through and like, well, we're going to do it this way, and it's like it adds a lot more work to everybody. Educating our children is obviously a very high priority, but having said that, we don't always have the time to, my wife's an essential worker. She is working on a a lot of things, including one medicine, which the targets include the reproductive sites of this virus, which could maybe block it and keep it from reproducing. That's kind of important too. So we want to educate our kids, but we're busy. Um, so it's difficult all around. Stress is high. I've also noticed, I think, an increased amount of stress in many of my interpersonal relationships. I think that's got to do with it. Um, so come on in, tell us your stories. Let's talk about it. Iron Charioteer, pollution levels are down, causing. Yeah, we actually showed a while back. We showed an image of a really startling image of um, China before and after, and it was really quite amazing the differences in what China looks like today as opposed. I mean, the single most polluted, one of the most polluted, I think, cities on the planet, and it was you could see and there were Chinese people saying this is the first time they've ever heard birds in some cases in Peking. So there are benefits, but and my hope is we learn to, hey, we don't need to rely, we don't need to be sucking gasoline directly from the nozzle. We don't have to freebase it. Um, that's my hope. We'll see if that carries over, but and we'll keep some. Yeah, well, there was a pork plant that had that issue. So again, if anybody wants to come on in and join us, that would be great. I'd like to think that the reason nobody's joining is because they just want to keep listening to me talk. But I've been around enough people who've heard me talk enough that they're like, no, no, we're good, we're good. So if you want me to shut up, a good way is to just come on in. And if not, that's okay. I can keep. It's rare that I can't actually keep talking. It just is. So I think what disappoints me most about this, though, China, it looks like, was hiding how bad it was. They were hiding how bad it was because they wanted to start hoarding medical supplies. At least this is not a fact yet, but it looks like this is becoming more and more well accepted that they they were hiding it so that they could start to gather supplies, and then when the rest of the world realized how bad it was, they'd have the supplies. That's a dick move, but what can you do? I normally wouldn't put that past the U.S. Or sorry, I would put that past the U.S., but not with this president, not in the slightest. So I think my biggest disappointment is it does appear that for the most part, China has gotten this largely pretty close to correct. They've done this well, and in as much as now it's easier for them in China. What they do is they sit there and say, okay, everyone's going to stay at home. If you're outside, we'll arrest you. Maybe let you go back home. If we let you go back home, great. But if you get caught outside again, we shoot and kill you. That is an interesting way to enforce social distancing and quarantine, and is really effective. People stay home even when they need food. They stay home. So it's worked, and it's worked spectacularly well. Now we don't have to do those by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm constantly being told that America is the greatest country in all the world. But we don't have the patience to sit indoors and do what's best, not for us, but for everybody else. Again, the people who are wearing the masks, that mask is to keep you from infecting other people. What is this country where it's even a question as to whether I'm going to wear masks? Why do people have to? And I understand, I'm for freedom and I'm for not being told what to do by the government or by anybody else. But why are these people then saying, well, I'm not going to be told what to do, so I'm going to put everybody else's life at risk by not wearing the mask? If you don't like it, if that's your way of doing a political protest, why don't you find a way of protesting that doesn't endanger other people's lives? I am. I've often thought one of the reasons I remember the day I said if that man ever runs for office, I will join his campaign. That was Barack Obama at the Democratic National Convention. He had the keynoted. I said there are no red states, there are no blue states. There's only the United States of America. That is an idealist view, and in many ways unsustainable. It concords with mine, and I liked that view. I liked that view a lot. And I said I will man, and I was still surprised when. But on the flip side, I was just we'll win. We'll find a way to win with that guy. And I joined his campaign while he was polling at 0.5, I think it was. 0.1, but it was 0% nationwide. I knock on people's door and uh, start talking to them, and they'd be like, "Barama who? Not Barama, not Bananarama. No, Barack Obama. Oh, maybe you should go with the middle name. Trust me, Barack Obama's good. Barack, just call him Barack. We're okay with that." Um, and uh, I'm not for saying that, I loathe the idea that you can score points and or it helps the debate or discussion in any way by saying that anyone who's in a red state is a racist and anyone in a blue state hates America. Those are both equally stupid ideas, and they're not designed to if you sit there and say I'm unpatriotic because I say America fucks shit up, you know what? You're out of the conversation. You're done. It's not a genuine conversation. As I would expect you to say you're a racist. In fact, if you want to say I'm unpatriotic, I'll say you're a racist, and then we're going to say, okay, I'm just going to declare you're a racist. That's just fine. Now, do we want to stop calling each other names and have a discussion? Are we adults? Is America the greatest country in the world? If so, you'd think two adults could have a conversation, even though they don't agree. Um, yeah, it's my audio, and I don't. I'm glad that you guys have been suffering through it. I do apologize, and I'll work to make sure that does not happen again. A computer issue on my side. Um, but the right is rapidly losing any respect I had for them because I thought at least they weren't cynical. I thought they weren't making up their values just for the sake of. But when you say you're a family values voter and you're religious and you vote for Trump over any other candidate, this is what the Christianity Today came out and they're like, guys, we can't honestly say we're Christians and vote for that man. You can't do it. Name one Christian value. Everyone knows he was bullshitting when he read from the Bible or said what's Mr. Trump, what's your favorite verse? Oh, well, they're all good, In other words, you get one. I like the one about the thing where he does the thing and then the thing happens and then wow, there's some fireworks there. Weren't there? Um, I don't. If you are religious and you didn't know who he was going in, I kind of don't believe you because I don't think there's any way to not know. All right, let me try refreshing here. Hopefully that's going to improve the audio a bit. If you were religious and didn't know who Trump was when he um, came into office, I kind of don't believe you, actually, because the only way to not know who he was to choose not to know, because it was really pretty clear. You didn't have to do your homework much on this one. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you're still, he paid off a porn star that he was having. How many wives has he been through? Give me a break. Uh, so it ends up being, it's all cynicism. They're saying they're for family values because that's what gets people to coalesce and do what they want. If, if you're for family values and you voted for Trump, I think you should be out of the conversation. I have no interest really in what you have to say anymore. And I'm sorry, that's those are the people we have to be talking with, but you're making shit up. You're lying. You don't have the values you say you have. So I and here he is going at another term. How many people are going to die from this? We were going to lose, to quote sort of the right wing, we were always going to have deaths to COVID, which is absolutely true. But China's gotten this under control, and nobody believes Trump anymore. And the fact is, we were on our way to getting it under control. We were on our way. We were almost 2/3 of the way there with how long we had been locked down. The pressure to open up came from a president who buckled and said, we should open up now, we should open up now, we should open up now, and gave credibility to a minority that really wanted to push for it, and then just started saying, yeah, we're going to be patriots and say we should open up now because death is awesome, man. There's nothing says we're badass Americans like killing our elderly. I sit there and say, what was the guy who came on and said, listen, there's a guy, reasonably, he's a name guy. He's not like A-list or even B-list name guy, but he's some religious guy, um, who came out and said, if the elderly, if an 80-year-old guy dies from this, it's still a tragedy. I mean, a life is a life, but he's an 80-year-old guy. The difference between that and what you're doing to 30-year-olds by taking away their future is, if a 30-year-old dies, and okay, fine, I could play that game too. That's an easy game to play. That's a really easy game to play. Fine, I agree. I don't think a 30-year-old dying is that much of a tragedy then either, and here's why. Because we've been around for 250,000 years. 250,000 years. The average life expectancy for 99% of that time, 99% of that time, average life expectancy was between 34 and 35. So if you're 34 or 35 right now, you have lived as long as the average life expectancy for 99% of our existence. So it's no tragedy if a 35-year-old dies either then, is it? Or do you just arbitrarily set the date? How are we going to do? Let me know. Let me know, because it sounds to me like if you're 35, because it was about a 35-year-old making the argument. It's a tragedy if I die, but the old guy. And there are some countries, by the way, I know this is a novel thought. You know what? You get to be 80 years old, yeah, you lose your car keys, you have some troubles with, you end up, Ben Shapiro. Actually, that sounds familiar. It may have been Ben Shapiro. I don't know. You end up having okay, you do silly things. You're not 100% there. You have an accumulated amount of wisdom that you can still draw on. That's one reason why, older people really can have a lot of game. It's a different game than what we're used to, but experience matters. It matters for a lot. And even when you're in decline and other abilities, experience means a lot. But fuck it, they're 80 and they're going to die soon anyway. That's the argument. And the fact that anybody says that this is, I'm sorry, and I'm a little triggered by this, admittedly, but this is, it's showing other countries what the U.S. really is. And if you're proud of arguments like that, keep in mind that reflects on this entire country. And if that's America at its greatest, I think you've really lost your way in this world. And you and I have a very different definition of great. By your definition, basically, America's great first, and then whatever was definition. And B, why don't you get the fuck out? I think America can do better. And I think it starts by getting rid of assholes like you. 5,000 yuan from Coessa. Thank you very much. I've seen stuff since the invasion, but no lie, honestly, the most disappointed I've been in Americans. We're not all one people, and in some ways, and thank you very much, by the way, Coessa, for that super chat. We appreciate it. And there is a huge swath of difference and different cultures in this country, actually. It's much more like, and the one that I saw and I linked to earlier was that the U.S. is actually 12 countries. And I like that. Somebody broke that up, and the culture is very much. And so, you can't say it's all America, but on the flip side, we condone this. And on the flip side, where are the protesters saying that they have to shut up? Now, on one level, I'm actually glad it's not happening, because that's how violence breaks out. Where's our president saying that has to stop? The most disappointed I've ever been in this country was when Donald J. Trump was elected. I did cry that night. I did. I cried. I cried because I'd been following it, and I knew I'd have to wake up my wife and tell her that he won. And it's not because I was a supporter. I mean, I do think she's good. I personally dislike her. I really do. I have a visceral dislike of her for a lot of reasons. And I was in one of the other things that I can say that not a lot of people can say. I was in a campaign that was fiercely contested against her. That was a unique experience because I met people from her campaign and who followed her brand of leadership, and they were not pleasant people at all. Not pleasant people at all. And boy, we had to destroy. I remember when the orders came in for us to destroy and shred all our documents as we were going out of the office. And I'm sitting there going, why? Like, oh, these guys on the other side do dumpster dives. And they'll go in and they'll sort of like, really? We're all supposed to be Democrats. We're all supposed to, okay, fine. And we had to watch out because they were taking sick people and bringing them in to volunteer for us. They were. Um, so Dems do some nasty shit too. And again, that's not Hillary, but the head of her ground campaign was rejected by the Obama campaign. They're like, nope, you can't work for us. And he was well known as really playing dirty. So I've been in political campaigns in opposition to her. It was not fun. I don't like her personally. I really don't. She was qualified. She would have been good. I certainly wasn't going to vote for her just to be the first woman, but she was good. And when it was Trump, especially because of what he had been saying about Mexicans, and people forget this. People forget what. That's why the moniker PGIC. People forget that he said that on that bus. He was bragging about sexual assault on women and saying he was advocating for it. Period. Period. Please, somebody tell me I'm wrong. You can't. Never mind. Don't even bother trying. He was advocating for sexual assault on women and bragging about having done it. This guy that we elected. I refused to even say he was president for 2 years. Finally, I was just like, people, I kept having to work around saying that. Finally, I just had to because of just what I work in. One of the most disgusting human beings I've ever met. And I've met quite a number. I cried the night he got elected because I realized this country was not what I thought it was. And I had told people he could never be elected because we were not that kind of country. So, Kawesa, thank you very much for your 5,000 won. The protests that you see now are disappointing, but they come from the leadership. They come from a man who's been stoking that fire. Watch what Fox News. There's some great footage on how Fox has changed throughout the narrative, or not, how their narrative has changed throughout time. And they start out by even Hannity. And when I say even Hannity, I mean this because right now Hannity's like, we've been consistent the entire time. We have always said that this is serious. We've always said that. Psst. See that juxtaposed to Hannity going, this is a left-wing conspiracy. They're doing it to detract from. They're doing it to make him look bad. Nobody's ever going to die from this thing. He was just talking shit. When everybody else knew, and Fox News and the whole number, then finally somebody said, you are killing some of your audience. Does that concern you at all? And at some point, that started to concern them, probably where they realized it might affect the money rolling in. I honestly think it probably wasn't much more than that. I don't give Hannity more than that anymore. I just don't. And I hate to become jaded and cynical myself, but they've given me cause. So now they're all like, we're reopening and it's good and it's great. And we're going to have, guys, did you learn nothing from what happened 8 weeks ago with this thing? We're going to start wrapping it up soon. Right now, it's just me bitching about the Trump administration. I hope you'll join our Discord. There is a link there. We'll continue the discussion on the Discord. I am still, my fever has been kicking back up again. I'm not rid of this yet. Maybe it's something else. Who knows? It's still not high enough to be, but I feel it, and it's so. I'm probably not going to be able to join on Discord immediately afterwards, but a number of people will be in the Discord. We have people discussing this breaking news, all the stuff that we normally cover here in the Discord. People are chatting about it. We had our Patreon hangout today. It was really good to see you guys. Thank you for coming. We had to miss our last one again because I was sick, but I hope you'll consider becoming a Patreon to the show. It's difficult for everybody, and I know a lot of people can't who would want to. And frankly, I'm thinking at this point, one thing we're going to do is we're going to start trying to, at least for the duration of this, inviting more people into the Patreons, or maybe have a separate, because we've been talking about adding another hangout. I'd like to do a hangout for people who'd like to be Patrons, but hey, you're out of work. And maybe all of us can get together. We still have to have the Patreon hangout for people who are, we can't, but we'll figure something out. Come into the Discord. We'll talk about it. Give us ideas there. But all right, Iron Charioteer is bailing, and everyone's going to get headed out. Thank you all very much for joining us, and I'll add one more thing, which is that this show has been around for I haven't figured out how many months yet. I'm going to guess maybe 8 months, and we have really spectacular numbers. We have a lot of people hanging out, and we've undergone a lot of changes, and we're probably going to undergo a few more. And we're still, I think, there's a lot. We're going forward. I think I really want to say thank you to those of you who have been with us this entire time, those of you who joined us and really been supportive. Thank you very much. We are a news and punditry program. That means there are times we're covering news, and you're going to hear whatever. You're going to hear what's going on. If Trump walks on water, you're going to hear he walked on water. We're fair. But then you're going to hear me afterwards say, "Oh Jesus, motherfucker tried to swim, and look what happened." Because I have my own personal views. They're not that bad. I'm not going to be that bad. But you understand what I was saying. We have people come on, and we cover the news. We cover our opinions, and we talk about what we think we can do with the facts that we have. A lot of you have been very supportive. Thank you to our patrons. It was a good hangout today. Again, come on down to the Discord and chat with us, and or subscribe. Certainly, also if you haven't hit the like, the thumbs up, and the subscribe button, please do that. Tomorrow we will have on Dr. Landon, not Dr. Landon, no, excuse me, Dr. Sygart will be on tomorrow to discuss what are some of these crazy theories going on with and that was the other one thing I wanted to lean into and didn't, but there's now, as one would expect, unfortunately, growing violence against Chinese Americans. Even if you were born in the U.S., but you have Chinese ancestry in right now in the U.S., I probably would not want to live here. And because hey, greatest nation again, kind of thing. But it was the same thing if you had dark skin after 9/11. And my hope is that it doesn't get worse. But when you have Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying outright lies, it may have. I can't conclusively say it wasn't started in a lab. I can't. All the evidence is it didn't. Well, there's evidence that it didn't. There's evidence that's very hard to fake that it didn't. But he said there's overwhelming evidence that it did. That's a lie. I will come out and say that's a lie. Might not say that during a news segment. I'm willing to say that in a hangout. And the reason is because that I've seen there's no evidence. Now, unless the CIA or NSA is talking in his ear, but then I want to know why MI6 is telling the UK something different. And right now, I trust British intelligence over the US intelligence. Not because we have bad intelligence, but actually, that's not even true, because our intelligence agencies are doing pretty well. The problem is Trump's blatantly ignoring them, and they hate Trump as much as anyone, actually. The intelligence agencies, he's thrown them on under a bus, backed it over, grown up so many times. Russians are hacking this election. No, they're not. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to thank our producer, Booleaninator, who we don't thank nearly enough, and my co-host, Courtney, our other host, Mikey Famine, who we hope will be resuming broadcasts this week on Stitch in Time. Thank you to our mods. Thank you all. There's a lot of you who go into making this work, and I don't spend probably enough time acknowledging that. Thank you all, and we will see you tomorrow. Night.